Hi, this is Deborah Walker. This is TNS Radio. How are you all? Saturday mornings. And where are you all? Apparently, I'm being told that I'm far too healthy for a Saturday morning. And after a Friday night of abuse, nobody can be getting up in the morning ready for me. I'm going to have to change my show time so that it's on a Friday, so that I actually at least capture some of you to maybe stop drinking so heavily. Who knows? Anyway, apparently this is your Saturday morning guilt trip. Welcome. I've got Nick riding shotgun and giving me advice about what I should be putting on my show today. But hello everyone in the chat box. Let's see who's there. I've got Lee. Hello Lee. And Sovereign T. Hello Sovereign. How are you? Hopefully you're all right. The prisoner's here. Have you escaped yet? I'll probably say that every single week. Lucid's here. Are you, though? I love that picture. I always think it looks like a sheep, though. And actually, I realised the other week it's actually a lion. Who'd have thought it, after all? And then I'm going to go over to Scottish Sovereigns because there's so few of you in the chat box this week. I'm wondering where you all are. Have you all killed your livers overnight? By not going to bed early, drinking too much? Who knows what else you're all doing? Don't want to know. Don't put that bit in the chat box. But let's start sharing in the chat box. So Nala's in there. Hello, Nala. King Kenny. Hello, King. Lorraine and Jim. I always get a bit confused whether it's Jim or Lorraine or Lorraine and Jim. And who else have we got? We've got no one else. I thought we had SS there for a minute, but I was a bit stunned. I thought SS up at this time, but then realised it said 3:53 a.m. So, yeah, like he's going to be here. So... who else? Oh, we've got Jake. Hello, Jake. Thank you for turning up. So, get in the chat box. What do you want to know this week? Who knows? Oh, the captain's just turned up. Now we got a few people in there. So hopefully the numbers will increase. I'm just a warm-up, let's face it, for Shazis, where it goes absolutely balmy in the rest of the afternoon. But anyway, he'll be on at 2. I'm on for the next 2 hours. And don't forget, we've got a donate button on the left-hand side of the screen. If you can, donate. It keeps TNS going. Isn't that lovely? No adverts or anything, if we can help it. Anyway, so what am I going to talk about? I'm talking about a few things. One of you asked about spleen in the chat box last week, and I didn't really have time to cover it, so I thought, hey, I'll talk about spleen. Before that, I'm going to talk about Whole Foods Market because they've annoyed me. And after that, I'm going to talk about tiredness and fatigue, which I did actually think I was going to do last week, but who knows? I just never know. Once the chat box gets going, what I'm going to talk about in the end with you all. So, bitching. So it's a great warm-up. Thank you. Thank you, bitching. That makes me feed my soul. Anyway, so Whole Foods Market. Apparently, they are being praised across the media for telling everybody that they are now the first US grocery chain to require that genetically engineered foods are to actually be labelled within their stores. Well, you think, well, that's great, in the States, because they are really quite influential in the organic market. But it's by 2018. You know what? 2018. It just beggars belief. It really does. And I actually like Whole Foods Market, but... some of the things they didn't even support the was it Proposition 37. They put very little money into it. Their customers started to actually shame them. They really did. So what on earth? Whole Foods purely about profit, as far as I'm concerned, not about health anymore in many respects. But it's not a victory at all when they're saying it's going to take them till 2018 to change that. And so that the food people have got the opportunity to actually take that amount of time, 4 to 5 years. That's absolutely ridiculous. You know what? It doesn't take that long to change labelling. If our trading standards over here tell a small business to change their labelling about supplements, they have to do it almost overnight. Not 4.5 years. It's just absolutely ridiculous, honestly. Yeah, and the thing is that amount, let's just consider that time scale. Guess what will have happened in that time scale? We know full well that the food market will have been flooded with GM products by that point. So in effect, labelling will always be unnecessary because we'll just have to take it as the norm that it's already there. Okay. And the other thing, an alternate pointed this out, which was the person who wrote the article in alternate was really interesting because they said that, you know, they went off onto a little bit of a rant about the meaningless label of natural. Oh, it infuriates me as well. People think they pick something up and it says natural and it's going to be really, really good for them. That can mean absolutely all sorts, including flavourings and additives. Natural isn't always cracked up to be. Okay, and really, natural should genuinely mean natural. It shouldn't mean, basically, it comes out of a lab and the original form of it was natural. It really shouldn't. Anyway, that's my little bit of rant over. I know. That was Whole Foods Market. It really have annoyed me, considering how much money those guys make. They're not really supporting the organic market or the organic traders that as well as they could be, particularly around the GM. And, you know, that it's saying that it has to be proven around GM. How much proof do you need with rats coming out of laboratories with massive tumours on them, DNA being altered? There's masses of research out there about GM. At some point, someone is actually going to be stating, actually, this affects us as well as our consumers. Because it really does. Let's face it. It affects them across the board as much as ourselves. Right. Come on, get in the chat box and start chatting to me. You know how I love to talk to you all. Where are you all? Okay. Anyway, someone asked me a question last week about spleen, and basically I quickly answered that it filtered the blood, but that was about it. And somebody else kind of put some bits and pieces into the chat box. But I thought I'd just cover off a little bit more about spleen, because actually spleen is really quite interesting, and particularly in Chinese medicine, because we as naturopaths, we actually, unlike your doctor who probably won't even consider your spleen most of the time, we actually consider spleen quite significantly, because it's often seen when I'm diagnosing, when I'm looking at somebody's health, I'm often diagnosing that they've got a spleen imbalance, and most people don't realise it. And I often bring everything back that I'm doing to the meridian systems, because you can quickly see meridian imbalance. But the spleen's role is effectively to remove old blood cells. So it's effectively like a mechanical filtration system, which is really, really interesting as far as I'm concerned. I love anatomy and physiology. I really do. I think it's really fascinating. And it actually recycles the iron. So it has quite a significant role to play within the body. It synthesizes antibodies and things like that. And obviously that's quite key, as you can imagine. And it removes antibody-coated bacteria. Oh, wow. So your spleen is really quite important around the blood and all the antibodies in the blood. So it's really, really important to look after it, particularly diet-wise. And, it also aids in your wound healing. So it creates like this red pulp, and that in effect then goes off to actually help to move the antibodies through the tissue, the injured tissues, which, so it's really quite key for your wound healing and any injuries that you've got and things like that. And so it's linked with your lymph system, so it's really quite useful for cleansing, And often it's removed. The thing for me is it's often removed. I often see people remove spleens, and I'm absolutely, it's like gallbladder and appendix. They just remove them. The medical people often just pull them out. And I'm often absolutely fascinated by that, about why they wouldn't have considered that to be important. Because, by its absence alone, it effectively has this, it puts your body in a predisposition to actually end up with more infections. Because if it's actually removing the antibodies and the antibody-coated bacteria as it stands, then in effect, you're likely to have lesser immunity. A lowered immunity is likely to happen. So you're likely to have more infections and things like that. So this week you want, Sovereign saying, any tips to get over the national tomorrow for Paddy's Debs? I've already done a show on liver. When did I do a show? You need to go back through my pods and listen to liver. I've told you all off about how you're treating liver. You lot, honestly, you treat your livers appallingly. But anyway, I've already done a show on liver. So if you want to actually listen to what you can do to, one, recover your liver, unfortunately, liver actually regenerates itself really, really fast. So probably the damage that you do tomorrow will be undone fairly quickly if you live a fairly good lifestyle. If you don't, then say sorry and apologise to liver right now for what you're going to do to it, honestly, on St. Patrick's Day. Is my spleen still in balance now you've vented it? Well done, Captain. You know, and that's the thing, you know, the whole venting of the spleen did come from the fact that they were doing work with it, you know, the medical people. Indeed. But often it's often removed, spleen. And the medical people do it, and it absolutely infuriates me. And, you know, just remember, guys, that nothing in your body is actually useless. It's not unnecessary for it to be there. It was put there on purpose. It all has a reason. I'm absolutely astonished when the medical people go, oh, we'll just take that out. There's no reason for it to be there. You won't notice it gone. I promise you, you will do. You'll be more likely to have infections and things like that. And Sovereign's saying he's just ordered a new liver just in case. Actually, you know, it really does regenerate itself really quite quickly. But just be nice to it. And the first thing probably to do on Monday is apologise profusely to it. And then, start eating nice and cleansing foods. Water. Water will be the first thing. Cleanse everything out of your system. That's if you're alive on Monday. If you're not alive on Monday and you're still dead to the world, then wait for the next day. Just don't overload it. It's, you know, it's already feeling overwhelmed. You've effectively poisoned your body by having too much drink. Oh. Spleen. It's nice with onions and some fava beans. Okay. So, where are we? I shall drown the demos out. What on earth is bitching up to? It sounds like he's already started on the actual St. Patrick's Day. The celebrations, if you're looking at his spelling there. Mally'sLiverHire.com. Hire one for the day, Sovereign, is Captain's idea. Oh, you can apparently hire a liver. Isn't that fantastic? Oh, is that Mally'sLiverHire.com? Okay. I give up with you guys. I really do. I come on here. I berate you all for abusing your bodies. I give you all really good advice. And look what happens. You just carry on and carry on. Apparently bitches telling me to behave. What you like. Honestly. It does sound like St. Patrick's Day's already started for bitching, doesn't it? Let's face it. All of these ones are well used. Suffering tea. Oh, we're still talking about the liver. Okay. Right, spleen. It's part of your lymphatic system. So, if you do overload your liver tomorrow, just remember that part of that is going to be dealt with by your spleen. Your spleen is going to be knocked right out, but it's going to be trying to filter your blood system. Honestly. Why am I even bothering? Okay. So, part of your lymphatics. So your body needs to be moving your lymphatics through so that actually everything can keep cleansing and keep moving itself. It's really quite important that your body can keep moving, and I'm sure if you've all drunk enough Guinness tomorrow, your bodies will be moving on Monday quite significantly. Don't say I haven't warned you. Honestly. Yeah. Hell yeah today on Saturday, bitching. Let's just listen to you on Monday. It's probably like all spelt wrong and shattered. Feeling sick probably after too much Guinness. Let's see. Apparently Mally's friends are all in the Mormon church, says the captain. Interesting. And the next Paddy's Day starts just when the last one ends, says Sovereignty. So none of you have been sober any of this time at all. It's green. You know, green's my favourite colour because let's face it, green. Green smoothies, green juices, all those greens full of micronutrients, absolutely fantastic for your body. Really, really fantastic for the body, let's face it. And shamrock, probably someone's been talking to me about shamrock. Can you eat shamrock? Does anybody know if you can eat shamrock? That'd be useful for me to find out. And there's Richfields. Hello, Rich. How are you? I'm busy trying to salvage everybody's health. Why I bother, I do not know, honestly. Anyway, everybody say hello to Rich, because someone else has turned up. Hurrah! Green pea, indeed. Sovereignty. Thank you for helping me with my show. Comic genius. Excellent. Right. So, Chinese medicine. I'm going to try and crack on, because last week I'd managed to get through a paragraph of more or less what I wanted to say, and I can see it's going to be exactly the same this week with you. Well, Chinese medicine, we use meridians, and they're often named after the physical organs, or they're kind of related to them, basically. And therefore, we often look at the meridian and how that organ system might be out of balance. And, in effect, it enables us to see the relationships of what is going on in the body and the organ system in the body. And with us and our environment. That's what's really fascinating about it, because often it will give you a myriad of information about the relationship that you're having, not only with yourself and with your food, but also with what you're interacting with in the environment. And that's the most fascinating thing about Chinese medicine. It's not just like Western medicine. It'll look at you and then look at the symptom and then look at it's only that area of the body. Actually, it goes into much more detail than that. It'll look at all the relationships of the imbalances across that meridian, and in effect, all the emotional correlations, what's the likely knock-on imbalances as well, what's the likely, let me think, environmental things that are likely to be happening to you. It's really, really fascinating. It really is. Apparently, bitching said it's like having my mum in the pub. Interesting. Right, whatever. Honestly. And Rich is saying he's good. He's wet, but good. Excellent. I know, me and the dog got absolutely wet through this morning. And I've got waterproofs on, and so does the dog, actually. My dog's got waterproofs. Oh, and you're busy brewing some homemade grape juice. Excellent. Will that be ready for tomorrow? Who let her in? Oh, is that me? Is that what you're saying? Yeah, and we're saying in China they use this before any operations. They do. And their Chinese medical system is amazing. And it's really sad, with the herbals regulations, the traditional herbal is like a traditional Chinese herbal. No, it's not Chinese. It's traditional herbal medicines regulation. I've forgotten the actual name of it off the top of my head. But that in effect really does impact across Europe on Chinese medicine and on Ayurvedic, the Indian form. It's basically more or less the same thing, but they've got their two different philosophies around it. So it is fascinating that you've got legislation coming in that actually affects those two. But Chinese medicine is amazing, and they still use it predominantly. And the Indians still predominantly use their Ayurvedic methods of diagnostics and herbs as well. You can't the Chinese model of healthcare is really interesting, and when you start to look at all the meridians and the 5 elements and things like that and all acupuncture points, you see so many correlations. It's hard to understand how science doesn't see it personally. It really is. Yeah, and Rich is saying it's a different language altogether. It really, really is. It's a very, very different way of diagnostics and actually treating the body. And, you do go across the board with it. It is really, really fascinating. So I love it and I use it. And, if you get an opportunity, do pick yourself some books up and start to use it yourself, because if nothing else, just being able to balance your meridians out is really quite powerful, and working with them. And you don't need, other people to learn it. There's lots of books out there that can truly, truly help, and are really quite simplistic. They really are. And do I know anything about Choto-san? I actually don't. Let me see. My father's been diagnosed with vascular dementia disease, but after some digging around, it seems like Choto-san has shown to improve a lot of symptoms. I don't know anything about that, but because I don't actually use a lot of the herbs. I tend to use the diagnostic side, and I use the meridian and the energetic side. You're going to need to talk to someone like Elwin from Lion's Herbs. He would be able to give you details about Chinese herbs. But in regard to sort of that issue, that's a long-term issue that's come on over a period of time, most likely. So you're looking at, I'd have to think about that, what you'd be looking at doing, Lee, in all honesty. I wouldn't want to just give you kind of anything off the top of my head, so Chateau-san, have a chat with Elwin or those guys over at Lion's Herbs. They may be able to enable you to understand a little bit more about that. He specialises in Chinese herbal medicine. Okay, now the spleen, for those of you who might be a bit tired this morning and not awake, basically, in Chinese medicine, is basically it extracts the raw energy from the food you eat and turns it into qi. So everybody's kind of heard of qi. Hopefully you've heard of qi, which is fundamentally almost like your core energy. And this then applies this energy across multiple purposes across the body, and one of those is immunity. As I've already said, and if nothing else, you need to look after your spleen so that it gives you high levels of immunity. It transports that energy to every single part of the body so it can be used, and it's linked with your food digestion. Yes. So if you are putting your spleen under pressure and your liver under pressure, then guess what? It's going to put your food digestion under pressure and your nutrient absorption. It's going to have that knock-on effect inevitably. The spleen also helps with kind of the formation of the blood in this picture of things. And but it's all about energy. Always all about your energy and what it can create. Yep, Softy, that's brilliant of you. He's very good actually over there. And I use their herbs myself, which is why I'm suggesting them. I don't get any kickback from it, in case you're wondering. So, Captain, comic genius. Is that part of the Chinese system, picking up books? Do they have heavy ones, or would you be picking up the odd paperback work as well? Probably both, Captain. Thank you for that input. I appreciate that. Okay. So, and Rich has put in a link for Stephen Gascoigne. Go follow that up. And feedback to everybody else. He's saying it's a good one. Yep. Lee's saying he's used acupuncture, so he endorses acupuncture and he had it for back problems. Really fascinating. I use the acupuncture points, but I tend to use acupressure with them, or I actually kind of use a light laser. So I do it slightly differently. And really interesting results you can get with acupuncture. Really fascinating indeed. So, let me see, where was I in all this? Oh yeah, effectively your spleen's quite important. And it's going to be really important for you all on Monday, by the way, once you've hammered your livers, I imagine. And I noticed that Bob hasn't said anything for a while, so maybe he's gone off to the pub with his mother or wherever that is. Right, so spleen governs transformation and transportation. If you think about it in that way, it's really easy to remember what the spleen does. And it holds the blood in the arteries and the veins. It nourishes your muscles. Raises your chi. Wow, that's your inner energy. It maintains all the organs in the proper places. It influences your capacity to think. Hey. It doesn't influence your hearing though, but at least Bitchin's got his spelling right for a change. So obviously he hasn't been on the beer that long. Cheese and onion. What is all that about? No, you're not eating cheese and onion. Not as part of supporting spleen. Honestly. Okay. But spleen helps you to do things like concentrate. Remember. Focus. All those sorts of things. If you want to remember your name at the end of your life, you know, this is all about keeping your body and your organ systems functioning properly and cleansed properly and treated well with the right foods. And the other thing interesting about spleen is that all this sitting around you're now doing. So if you're all sat down in front of your computers listening to this, then it's having a negative effect, interestingly enough, on your spleen. So you need to get up, get out after the show. Don't say I told you that, because of course you'll miss Shazisi's show at 2:00. But do go, get up, get out. You know, let's run around, dance like nobody's watching you. Honestly, you'll do your spleen some good whilst you're dancing and running around. Say, spleen, here you go. This is for you. Because spleen deficiency is actually very common. I see it a lot, and just to be a little bit serious there. And I actually end up diagnosing it as an issue, as an imbalance. So I have to deal with it via diet and things like that. Now, if you're doing this, most people are doing this on a daily basis, knocking themselves out of balance. And you're all going to be out of balance probably from St. Paddy's Day by the looks of it. I feel sorry for spleen on Monday. Really, never mind liver and stomach. Oh. So if some of you are struggling to focus and remember what you're doing and concentrate, and that's such a common thing. I have several things said to me nowadays. Things like, I am tired all the time. I just can't remember. I forgot this, I forgot that. I've even forgot where I put my keys. I can't remember what I've just said. I can't even remember the film I've just watched. Think about it. Because actually we're not meant to be like that, in all honesty. We really aren't. And he's just given his experience of hot stones after his acupuncture and the usual massage by a tiny Chinese lady with the hardest hands and fingers. Had about 6 sessions on my back issues. L1, L2 pretty much disappeared. Fantastic. Thank you for that. More testimonials about how fabulous natural health is and how it always resolves our issues, because it does. Yeah. I hate to say it, but we're affecting spleen. We're creating. The thing is, with the energetics, it prevents it from doing what it needs to do. So, yeah, sitting. It's the long lengths of sitting. So it's not just sitting down for short periods. It's the long lengths of sitting. So where we all sit in jobs all day, it's not just one thing in regards to this. Most of us are sat in front of computers or electrical devices of some form or another. If we're on, our cars and things, that affects our energetics. Basically, we're mostly hunched over, so we're not actually sat up properly. That doesn't help stomach function properly, it just goes on and on and on for the things that actually affect our organ systems and our ability to actually truly function. Just because we're now sitting all day, because mostly we should be up, because spleen is very much linked with the lymphatics. And we need to be moving to enable our lymphatics to function properly, because our lymphatics don't have a pump. It's not like the rest of our circulatory system, which has a pump. It effectively doesn't have that, so it can become stagnant. And this is what can happen. It creates stagnancy in the body by sitting all day. And therefore, it doesn't help us to actually continually cleanse our bodies as we should be doing. This is why we affect our energetics. Save our spleens, SOS, liking it. Indeed. Yep, you've just got to stand up every so often. All these people, they've got you sitting at desks all day. Get up, dance around, have 5 minutes and tell them it's an SOS. I like that idea. Well, Deb, you can always go to Tesco's now, but we all love you being in the chat box, Captain. So we'd like you to say, what on earth have you done to your name, Captain, as well? I can't say it anymore. I can't say it. Because Dallas can say Captain Sting G. That's it, unfortunately. Should we be getting standing desks? Well, it's all about movement more than anything. I would suggest that you spend at least 10 minutes of every hour getting up and moving around. Don't just don't just be a slave to the desk. Honestly, it's not good. It really isn't. To the off license, nicely. I can see you all taking this absolutely seriously. Absolutely. Don't come to me when you've got problems with spleen. I'm telling you, I will not be listening. Honestly, when it starts sending those SOS signals out and you're saying, Debbie, spleen's out of balance, I'm going to be saying, I'm going to be copying and pasting what you've all said to me and saying, look, you're off to the off license. Yeah, you're off to Tesco's for probably some Marmite and pasty and pie, Captain. So, I don't know. It's all your own faults. It really is. Now, we're in, it's all really rainy today. And as Rich was saying, he's got wet. I've basically got soaked through with the dog this morning, walking her. And your spleen's actually really affected by dampness. So it's really important to look after your body, get it wrapped up, those sorts of things. We often don't look after our kidneys. You know, when your mother told you to wear your vest, actually, she was absolutely right. You need to tuck your vest in, your pants. All of this, I do not understand this. This whole thing of these lads walking around with their trousers halfway down their buttocks. What is all that about? I dread to think. But all of their kidneys, as well as everything else, is on show. I'll be honest, it's really not attractive. But all I can think was, oh gosh, look at their kidneys. They're going to be, their kidney meridians are going to be all out of balance. Your kidneys need to be looked after. They need to be all nice and warm when it's in this weather. And so does your spleen. It's affected by the dampness. It's also affected by things like your excessive thinking and worrying, your consumption of cold foods in the wrong times, and foods that actually are kind of mucus forming. Doesn't do your spleen any good at all. So you need to back off from the pork scratchings when you get to the pub, honestly. So none of those things. I'm just going to turn this off because it's now bleeping at me. Okay, right. So when you go to the off-licence, put down the scampi flavoured fries and everything, because they're going to be mucus forming, and that's just going to be even more of an impact on spleen. It really is, honestly. And Captain's saying the Marmite's almost gone. No way, I thought you bought catering packs. I thought you were meant to be set up for a survival situation. I thought you had enough for about 50 years there. Honestly, I'm almost disappointed. I really am. Chocky bar, that's my crime, says Lee. Oh, I do like the old chocolate bar as well. Yeah, so let's see. What else have you been saying when I was on over in Scottish Sovereign of the Land? Yeah. Rich, absolutely. This is the thing. Most of them do not know why they're wearing their trousers off their buttocks. And actually, you're absolutely right. It does have that symbolism behind it. And yeah, scampi is nasty. I used to work in a chip shop years and years ago. It wasn't good then. It isn't good now for yourselves. Okay, so yeah, I'm sure they would pull up their pants pretty quickly, although I'm not even sure they've got the chi energy anymore to do that. I think their chi energy, their spleen energy is probably way out of balance. Most of them have gone out of the house without eating breakfast anymore. So that's going to massively impact spleen. It really, really is, honestly. They've got no idea what they're doing to themselves and their kidneys by wearing their pants halfway down their buttocks. I don't know. And Bitchin's now giving us the ingredient list of what he's probably eating in the pub, I imagine. Honestly, I'm amazed he's still sober enough. Anyway, where is Bitch? I thought Bitchin was meant to be on air more often. What's happened to his 80s night? I don't know. Captain, what are you like? The Marmite would have lasted much longer, but marketed it as a quick time product. Oh man, I have to say you are truly a comic genius. My show would not be the same without you. It really wouldn't. Tell me, has anybody not laughed at that today? Honestly. And Lee's saying, hey, if smoking is so bad for you, how come it cures kippers? Boom, boom. Thank you very much for that. Can we move on now? Honestly. And Rich is asking me, did I check out Stephen Gascoigne's site? I'm on air at the moment, Rich. This isn't a pod. I'm actually doing this live. So, in effect, I'll check it out later. But thanks for putting it in there. And I do follow up on all your links if you put stuff in there so that I can add them either to my own website or to my blogs or to the Facebook. So I do have a Facebook page as well as TNS. So you'll see me put stuff on the TNS page. But also I've got a Passport to Change page. So I post loads and loads of stuff up there. We'll probably put it up there. But thank you, Rich. I appreciate that. Now, laughter. You do make me laugh, I have to say, in the chat box. But emotions are really important around your organ system and the meridians. We actually we can tell a lot from the emotional state and the direct meridians that are likely to be out of balance and the organ systems that are out of balance. It's really, really fascinating. Things like worry and dwelling on things too much, focusing too much on a particular topic, and things like excessive mental work and, all those things that we're kind of known for in our society, ironically enough, that we all end up worrying. I'll be walking my dog and someone's got a worry. Everybody's got a worry on their mind. Actually, that's spleen out of balance. Honestly. So, I don't know. I think so many spleens are out of balance. Now, your spleen and stomach are actually quite close in regards to relationships within the body, in regards to the organ systems in Chinese medicine. And in effect, you've got your stomach, it's responsible for your breakdown of your foods, and your spleen basically extracts the essence and the energy from that food and the chi from the food. So that's their direct relationship that they have. And then, of course, it's later absorbed by your small intestine. So both spleen and stomach relationship is really key because they govern the transportation of these food, energies basically around the body to the tissues, as we know, So, and if your organ system overall is balanced and strong, you'll have things like good digestion. You'll feel really energized, particularly after your meals. Now, if you find that you are shattered after eating, then you need to look at your spleen-stomach relationship in regards to the meridians, because often they're out of balance, and there will be something out of balance if you're getting tired after eating. And a lot of people will tell me, I eat something and I fall asleep in the evening, or I don't eat too big of food. I can't eat a lot of things like potatoes and stuff like that because they knock me out. Now, if it's not an allergic response, you've got food intolerance going on there, then look at your energetics around the body and how those two are working, because probably they're not functioning and they're not as balanced as they could be. So, your spleen, basically, the role in this kind of partnership is about nourishing those tissues and determining the amount of kind of physical energy a person will have. So if you see people who are very, very low in their energies and stuff like this, probably their spleen is having a massive influence over it. And also your spleen really does influence the sense of your taste and your appetite. How fascinating is that? So often when we're attracted to something food-wise, there's often a direct correlation between the organ system that's out of balance. That can be really, really interesting to look at in particular. So if you're attracted to things like salty foods, like your Marmites, you need to look at your kidney meridian, for instance, because that's quite likely to happen. You're going to be drawn to more salty types of foods, Captain. There you go. I dare scroll back up because then I see the comment on the chat box about them using Marmite as a quick tanning solution. Okay. Yep, Lee's saying his spleen's told him to have some eggs on toast. Excellent. I don't know. Anyway, so that relationship between the spleen and the stomach is really quite key. And, it does greatly impact on all of the other organ systems, not just the one. So you are susceptible to having things like fluid deficiencies and stuff like that happening because of it. Most people would just look and say, oh, I've got a kidney picture, so therefore I've got kidney issues, so therefore this is just going on with kidneys. Actually, you need to start following it back. It's almost like a little investigation you do through your body, because that's what's so fascinating about it all. Because often this Chinese model, the 5 elements, will enable you to see your body in a very different way and to actually diagnose it in a very different way in regards to what's going on. So, if you're doing over things like overthinking, lots and lots of studying without a break, sitting down too long, if you've got excessive physical work as well, so if you're doing too much, if you've not got regular eating patterns, I see that a lot nowadays, and this will damage your spleen and stomach relationship health. It really, really will. So many people will go without breakfast all day, without eating food all day. So they'll go without breakfast and then lunch, and then they'll wonder why they're ravenous from 3 o'clock onwards. And then they'll eat everything, including anything sugary. They don't care, just want to get food down themselves at that point. You're knocking your bodies out of balance significantly by doing that. And that leads to not only poor eating habits, but also poor nutrition. And your body will have a trouble absorbing it. And because it's overloaded at that point, it's trying to then deal with it as well. So it actually has big knock-on effects with it all. Things like overeating will also impact on it. Overeating impacts on your stomach, spleen, liver. Oh, it has this massive knock-on effect. And guess what? You're going to be asleep after it because you've overloaded your system very probably. You're going to be looking at a pancreas picture there because it's trying to deal with the excess of sugar very possibly. And often then, because of the irregular eating habits, we're more drawn to things like sweets because we're pushing an adrenal picture. We end up eating more greasy and fried foods because we're more attracted to them. And as I said, your spleen will, influence basically your appetite and your taste. So it will push you towards foods that will give you fast release of energy. So it likes moderation. Spleen really does like moderation. It likes you to do a little bit at a time. It likes it to be looked after. So really important to look after your bodies. It really is. So Lee is saying the body is a clever thing. It won't allow you to suffer too much. Cancer is the countdown warning. Interesting point, really. The body has this amazing feedback system. It really does, and it has this whole ability to switch on almost lights like a dashboard. You start to get pain, you start to get tiredness, fatigue, all those sorts of things. And guess what? It is like a dashboard, and it's just telling you that you're not doing the right things. It does feedback. As long as we don't ignore it, it'll give you stomach pain, it'll give you nausea, it'll give you diarrhea and constipation. It'll do loads and loads of things until you start to ignore it. And then as you suppress it, and if you push it into the body or you ignore it, it goes deeper and deeper and deeper as a picture. And that's when you get cancer starts to, basically your gene expression's got to the point where it's been triggered. So in effect, you're creating a deeply acidic picture in the naturopathic terms. You really are. So it really can be that you've ignored the signs for a long time before you get to that issue. So listen to your bodies. Look at the dashboard of your body. It really is fascinating. It really is. And it will tell you. It will tell you as you go along. It is an amazing thing, the body. And it constantly brings you back into balance. It really does. It will do everything it can to survive. Those cells will do everything they can to survive. How wonderful is that? But by doing that, it's often having to push acidity to out away from the organ systems. It'll push it to your joints. It'll give you pain there. If you've overloaded it, it'll let it all go. You'll have constipation. Your intestines will be out of balance and that sort of thing. Because it's just trying to do its best with what you're doing to it. So let's see what you're all saying. We need to alkaline the body then. We need to have a nice balanced body. And it's, there is the right point, and it's different throughout all the body. So your blood needs one pH level, your overall body needs another, and all this sorts of things. But you do need to have more alkalizing foods. So a higher range of alkalizing foods over acidic foods. And these are your foods that your fruits and vegetables, nuts, seeds, beans, all those sort of plant foods. And, small amounts of meats and dairies and stuff like that, and your grains, not large amounts of them because they're more acid form and a mucus form, which is what I was talking about with the spleen. They are going to impact on the body far more. But yeah, you need your water in there. But there's other things that create acidity in the body, and spleen's impacted by worry. It's impacted by stress. As is nearly everything in the body, in all honesty. But you can really easily damage it. And the great thing about the body is you can recover it really quite quickly. It will do everything it can to bring itself back into balance and recover itself. But let's see. Blimey, Lee. I'll have to look at Professor Chang. So at least then Professor Chang and his research colleagues show that apparent extraterrestrial programming gaps in DNA sequencing precipitated by a hypothesized rush to create human life on Earth presented humankind with a logical growth of massive cells we know as cancer. Interesting. I'll look at that. I have to read up on that, to be honest. I can't comment on it. So he's also saying, Mr. Chang then confirms that the first fact is the complete program was positively not written on Earth. That is now a verified fact. The second fact is that genes by themselves are not enough to explain evolution. There must be something more in the game. Yeah, I think there must be more than we're being told anyway around our DNA. But I'm still learning about all that side of things myself, really. So I would struggle to explain my perspective on it at the moment. But yeah, Rich is saying it's fascinating to me. Yeah, I agree. And yep, if you put some links in there. Okay, so you put one link in there, Lee. If you could put some more links in the box, that'd be great, so I can read up on that later. That'd be lovely of you. Fantastic. So where are the rest of you anyway today? What's everybody else got to say on DNA? So, if you're falling out of balance, it's affecting your spleen most likely, is my point, really. Tired, loss of appetite, mucus discharges, poor digestion, you've got abdominal distension, you lose stools, you diarrhea, any weak muscles, you've got no real muscle strength, that sort of thing. People with pale lips, interestingly enough, is often a good sign to see whether you've got a spleen deficiency going on. You've got bruising happening, you've got your periods are quite heavy or they're excessive. You've got other bleeding disorders, things like that. Remember the first thing I said was that the spleen effectively is like a filtration system. If you've got abdominal bloating, you've got things like fatigue happening, and there's loads of things I could go on, to be honest. But it could be that your spleen is out of balance. Fascinating, absolutely fascinating. Now, this is the interesting stuff. So, and I'll be running a test on all this later. I hope you've been taking notes, everybody. Right, so your spleen meridian actually comes into its own from 9 a.m. in the morning to 11 a.m. in the morning. And for those of you who don't know, basically the Chinese have the organs system effectively against a clock, and they come on every 2 hours approximately. So in effect, we have times of when things should be most effective, and spleen's actually from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. in the morning. And this is why you will get people like myself who are seeing spleen imbalances actually saying that breakfast is one of the most important parts of the day, and that's because of the spleen-stomach relationship that goes on. And because your stomach meridian is just before that, the 2 hours before, so that's 7 till 9 a.m. Therefore, it's really, really important if you're going to have breakfast during those times, because your spleen and stomach energy is more likely to be able to utilize it effectively within the body. Okay? Now, most people don't feel hungry when they wake up in the morning, but you've been fasting effectively for what might be 8 hours plus. And if you're not hungry in the morning, then there's likely to be a dysfunction of the spleen. And that's obviously from a Chinese medicine perspective. But, I also have a look at, most people are telling me they feel sick as well. So they have nausea in the morning. So I often look at not only the spleen deficiency, but also the type of food they've been eating, how late they've been eating it, what they've been drinking the night before, and whether they've effectively cleansed overnight and had the opportunity to cleanse overnight. So I would also look at things like sleeping patterns and what time they get into bed and things like that. Because is it before liver time? Your liver time is basically from 1 till 3 a.m. in the morning. So, and gallbladder time is just before that, from 11 p.m. to 1 p.m. And, most people are burning the midnight oil nowadays and often not going to bed. And you guys often, I see in this chat box that, people are still up beyond 3 o'clock. That would say to me that actually the spleen the liver and gallbladder meridian, and the ability for them to function properly and actually truly cleanse overnight are most likely to be having an impact in the morning and making people feel nauseous, and not feel, up to par and lowered energy. But if you are burning the midnight oil, guys, then guess what? You are most likely affecting your long-term immunity. You really are. Yeah. Okay. So, apparently Nick's run out of oil ages ago. Can someone, send some oil to Nick? And Lee, you've posted some more bits. That's brilliant of you. Thank you very much. I shall read those later. And I've read some bits and pieces around that. I just would struggle to discuss it, in all honesty. It's not my specialism, it's more my interest. And Richie's saying, have you read any Barbara Clow? I always call her Chow for some reason. It's Clow. Lee. And really interesting lady. And there's a couple of interviews actually on Red Ice Radio and from Barbara, which you might want to actually listen into. Indeed. She's very, very interesting. So, your spleen. Often, when we go up in the morning and we've had a big night out the night before and we want a cooked breakfast, guess what? It's because spleen really does, when it's out of balance, it really does dislike raw foods. So all those people are trying to go raw and are struggling with it. You might want to think about the fact that a lot of imbalances will not be able to allow you to deal with raw foods because they're very cleansing, raw foods. So they can be quite overloading at times. So, you need to be going for more of a cooked porridge when you've got a spleen imbalance, and more of your cereals types things. So brown rices, Chinese medicine, we use a lot of long grain brown rice and stuff like that. And you can cook it with kind of your fruits and things, and a few nuts and stuff like that. Really quite nice. So you can throw in some apples and peaches. Now, depends always on the imbalance and health of the individual, whether they'll be able to deal with that. So this isn't carte blanche. This is just if you have a spleen imbalance at the end of the day. But so think about your porridges for breakfast. But now, the spleen actually really quite likes sweet foods, but in moderation, because it's like this double-edged sword. It likes them, but actually it's very easy to overdo it and then knock it out of balance. And so your sweets are always in moderation, your sweeter foods, and I think Rich was talking about honey earlier, and it's those sort of foods we're talking about. And the other thing that might be helpful is things like dandelion and stuff. So that can be really, really useful as well. And so, let me just think, what else do I want to say to you? Dandelions are everywhere as well. Herbs. We often think about herbs and think, they're going to be really expensive. But one, tinctures will last you a long, long time because they're in alcohol. Two, you can do them yourself. The Hedgerow Medicine book actually gives you really quite clear indication of how to make your own herbs and tinctures. Very, very easy. And things like dandelions are just abound. Everybody thinks that, there's things that we shouldn't have in our gardens. You go pick them and enjoy them. Do, because actually they can be really, really useful for the spleen. And of course it has strengthening for the whole system. Supports the liver, dandelion does, supports the kidneys. Doesn't get much better than that, really, let's face it. And they're wonderful. They're all around us. I love that factor. I love being able to go out and just pick my own. And then, if nothing else, put a few dandelion leaves onto your salads and stuff, into your food. How nice would that be? So, and the other thing would be to think about using barberry and iris. Barberry and iris are really quite nice as well as herbs. So, just have a quick look in the chat box. What else have we been talking about? Lee's saying, yes, she's a bit new agey for me. Yes, I can see what you mean, but she's really quite interesting at times. Okay. Dandelion, potassium. Potassium's just great across the body. You need to get it right, though. You need to have a good potassium-sodium balance, as with all your electrolytes at the end of the day. Make coffee out of the root. Indeed, you can do. You can with dandelion root coffee. And apparently Shamrock is nutritious. It contains calcium, chromium, magnesium, niacin, phosphorus, potassium, thiamine and vitamin C. I was given some this weekend, and I'll be eating mine. I don't know if my shamrock actually knows that. But so there you go, Irish. The Irish that can eat their shamrock. Isn't that fantastic? So on St. Patrick's Day, you can enjoy that and have at least something green that's healthy and not just your Guinness. Blimey. Okay, and John McHugh saying, Midnight Oil used to listen to them in Australia. Oh, well. We'll have some good music on in a minute, I promise you. In fact, we're going to have some good music on now. I've got, and everyone, as with everyone else kind of says, oh no, everybody else's music is rubbish. And so here we go. I'm going to have Girls' School, and then I'm going to follow it by the Fuzz Tones. Enjoy it, guys. I'm just going to go and get myself a drink. Right, I'm back. Although I'm losing my voice. Some would say that's not such a bad thing, to be honest. Right, so Bitchin's saying, Bitchin was great. Apparently he's told me the shamrock is edible, which is perfect. And, I will be consuming that later in my salad, probably. Who knows what it tastes like? Does anyone know what it tastes like before I just go ahead and eat this thing? Eat this plant without really thinking about it. And I've been asked, will I have a drink on St. Pat's, Debs? No. Well, I will be drinking on St. Pat's, but I'll be drinking water or chocolate smoothie or something else that's healthy. Don't drink anymore. So the answer's no. And apparently he's calling it St. Bitchin's Day. And I hear from a little bird that actually it's Bitchin's birthday. Yeah. Apparently he's 50 this year. Oh, things people shouldn't share with me, honestly. Doesn't look a day. He doesn't look that old, does he? Let's face it. Yeah, that'll give something for bitch to bitch about. Let's have a look at what happens to the chat box now. Right, so I was going to cover in the rest of the show about tiredness and fatigue, and that's because one of the main things that people come to me with is actually that they are shattered all of the time. Sovereign saying it's tomorrow's after entertainment. Thanks. Anyway, I don't know of anyone who doesn't say to me anymore that they're not feeling tired or they're not shattered. And I actually see people who go from just being generally exhausted to genuinely being so tired that they're either in wheelchairs or they're actually being carried into my clinic. And so there's varying levels of fatigue that goes on. And people are just, on many respects, on many levels, unable to function. And that makes me really sad in many respects because, it's been sometimes what they feel is a sudden thing that's happened. And actually, when I start to take a case and a health history, I can see that there's been indications there for a long, long time. That's when